author. Okay, but the second set of guests are the leaders of the Justice Democrats. So they will unveil some of their new plans for the next 2 years on Rebel Headquarters right here on tyt.com/live. Okay, and then for our members, they will then stick around for the post game and tell us how they found Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the first place.
Damn.
That's a super interesting story. Some of you might have read it in one publication, but I think most of the folks don't know that story, and it's a really, really interesting one. So that's for our members, tyt.com/join to become a member, or while Anna's out, there's a good opportunity for me to catch up. tyt.com/jank is a great way to sign up and become a member. By the way, we are also doing free trials this week, so probably the easiest way. Let's keep it real. You're going to get a week free to try it out if you go to tyt.com/holiday. Okay, so week free trials, tyt.com/holiday to make that happen. I don't know how long that's going to last. Presumably through the holidays, but I don't know. Okay, you never know.
2 years, actually.
Yeah, you never know. Okay, so check that out. It's a good opportunity to do that. Okay, so here's the exciting news. I just realized Meet the Press has been sold. What? Is this going on? Oh, there we go.
This is more of a firework.
Okay, tyt.com/amplify. We're getting it to John Idarola lookalikes all over the media.
I knew you were going to say that. JR is a horrid man.
Yeah, I don't even believe it. I don't even think it's true at all. But I know that it bothers you, so I enjoy that part. So,
clear.
Meet the Press now getting TYT membership, not just Chuck Todd, but the staff as well through tyt.com/amplify. The Intercept also getting TYT membership. And so, look, we try super hard to get it to these folks after you guys buy it for them. So, but with the Intercept, we will have great luck.
Yeah, I know a few people who are be members already, actually.
Yeah, and so we will definitely get it to them. So Glenn Greenwald, Jeremy Scahill, Ryan Grimm, etc., Lee Fong, Zed Jelani. I would argue I just named 5 out of the top 10 or 20 writers in the country. They're all at the Intercept, and so tyt.com/amplify. Thank you for making that happen. Oh, let me give credit to the folks who did it. Meg Hopley is the one who bought the Meet the Press package. So Meg, you're the best of the best. Really appreciate it. And
use it.
Yes,
thank you, Meg.
And I will find out who bought the Intercept and share that with you in the next break. Okay, a couple of a correction and then a fun story. I have a quick correction for you guys. Yesterday, when we're covering the Neil deGrasse Tyson story, I was a bit moved by that story. and it was the last story that we did on the show, so John did not get a chance to correct me as we ran out of time. So I mentioned Pathos being a faith and spirituality blog and assumed that they might not agree with Neil deGrasse Tyson in the story that they covered about the 3 women who have made accusations against him. That was an incorrect assumption on my part. First of all, Pathos covers a variety of different beliefs, including no belief, and atheists, etc. And in fact, the writer of that piece, David G. McAfee, is a journalist and author of No Sacred Cows, investigating myths, cults, and the supernatural. He is, to the best of my understanding, not a religious person. He writes about science, skepticism, and faith. And his blog is No Sacred Cows. That's also on the Pathos Network. Now the comments on the actual story, both the women's allegations and Neil deGrasse Tyson stand. There are no factual errors there, and we did report what David McAfee wrote. It was when we moved on to the part about analysis, such as it was in that particular case, where I made the mistaken assumption about Pathos and the writer, which I clearly should not have done. So my apologies on that, and I wanted to make sure that we corrected it at the top of the show today. Okay? And I'll let him know on Twitter that we corrected it, because I forgot to let him know. Okay, so now let's go to a quick fun story. Guys at Wolfpack sent me a picture from about a year ago from West Virginia. Richard Sapple's our leader there. He's literally known as Wolfpack Sapple. So that's how often he goes to the state legislature, and he's awesome. So he took this picture of a solid get-together that they had in West Virginia. Let's take a look at it right here. And that's his big face right in the front there.
I recognize someone.
Wait a minute. There appears to be someone in that picture that you might recognize. Sure, Sapple's also famous, but the guy on the right-hand side is one Senator Richard Ojeda. Remember, he's a state senator in West Virginia. Now, he was, had come to the meeting. This is when he was running for Congress, but a state senator. Wolfpack's having a meeting, and here come Ojeda. Now, I talked to Richard Ojeda about a year after that picture, and I said, this was off the air, and I said, tell me about the different things that you want to do about money in politics. On the air, he told me he wants to put body cams on lobbyists, which is super fun. Then he announced for president after his race for Congress and said that he would cap all income for people who work in Congress at $250,000 after they retire, and they'd have to give up everything but $1 million. Heads exploded. Now, the thing is, they think he's not going to win, so they're not making a big deal out of it. But if he does win, he'd be the most dangerous man in Washington. They'd be like, no, how can we only make $250,000? But when I talked to him off air, he said, well, look, I supported this group called Wolfpack. I was like, Richard, do you know who started Wolfpack? And he's like, no. I'm like, I started Wolfpack. He's like, well, I don't think I can say it on there. He's like, really?
He held you up against the wall and said, you lying to me?
Because I'll knuckle up. So
that's funny.
No, but what I love about that story is that he didn't have to go to a Wolfpack gathering of activists to get money out of politics in the middle of West Virginia. And sometimes state legislators do. We had a state legislator from New Hampshire join our volunteer call the other day, just randomly, like, hey, who are you? Oh, I'm a state representative. Oh, cool. Okay. So, but it doesn't happen that often, and Ojeda at the time doesn't know he's going to run for president, doesn't know, he's not doing it for politics. He showed up because he wanted to get money out of politics.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you guys are trying to get money out of politics, deal me in, right? So great credit to Ojeda on that one. And if you want to do like Ojeda and join Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com/join. Make that happen. You might run into Ojeda one day, or he might run into you. When I asked him about money in politics, you know what he said? I can't accept that. I almost had the soundboard ready, but I didn't. I can't accept that.
Ad, yeah.
And when I asked, how do you feel about people taking money like Kara Miller?
How dare she?
By the way, if we combine two of the things you talked about, so you're going to have the heads of the Justice Democrats here, and you're talking about meeting up with Richard Ojeda at one of those meetings. You go to one of those meetings in your own area, you might not meet Richard Ojeda, but you might meet one of the people that's going to be running as a Justice Democrat and become a congressman next time around.
Wow.
Those are exactly the sorts of people that will be running again.
That's right. That's right. Wait till you get a load of our plans for the next year. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. One last one. Hey, Senator Ojeda, should lobbyists come by your doorstep?
They need not darken my doorstep.
Stick around with the Young Turks and Wolfpack and Just Democrats. You never know who you run into. Hey, John's absolutely right. If you come to a Just Democrat get-together in New York, you might run into one Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez before her election, and so come along. We're gonna go fix the country. So join up for a little bit of change, or maybe just a lot of change. Okay.
TikTok.
That's right.
Not really mixing up things.
Okay.
Why don't we talk about some news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yesterday, the true political leaders in this country, Bernie Sanders and others, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, had a climate change town hall in D.C. and talked about the severity of the threat that we're facing and what we need to do to meet it. And that same night, Donald Trump and his administration decided to move in exactly the opposite direction. This is economic advisor Larry Kudlow announcing that they would be cutting, they plan to, all subsidies for electric vehicles and renewable sources of energy. that same night that there's this enthusiastic coming together of climate activists and all that, they're looking to cut those subsidies. Larry Kudlow specifically said, as a matter of our policy, we want to end all of those subsidies. And by the way, other subsidies that were imposed during the Obama administration, we are ending, whether it's for renewables and so forth. As a matter of our policy, we want to... that's a duplicate there. Now, bear in mind, we could have known that this was going to come, since Donald Trump tweeted just a few days ago this. Very disappointed with General Motors and their CEO, Mary Barra, for closing plants in Ohio, Michigan, and Maryland. Nothing being closed in Mexico and China. The U.S. saved General Motors, and this is the thanks we get. We are now looking at cutting all GM subsidies, including for electric cars, and then he goes on. So, once again, I know that we like to write off Donald Trump's Twitter, but sometimes he tweets something crazy, and then that becomes the crazy official policy of our government. So, I don't know if Larry Kudlow agrees with this policy for the same reason that Donald Trump does. I don't know if it's purely about they're mad at GM, so they decide that they're going to hurt American car manufacturers. But cutting those subsidies is significant. It means that fewer people will buy those cars. Those cars won't sell as well. Companies will invest less money in research and development to produce more efficient cars, building on the technology over time, and we will be less well prepared to deal with at least that component of the emissions that are contributing to climate change in this country. But it's very casual change for them.
Yeah. So, a couple things about this. Number one, interestingly enough, they have decided not to end the subsidies on oil, or natural gas, or coal. So the fossil fuel subsidies will continue. And there are literally so many fossil fuel subsidies that even experts have a hard time tracking all of them. And so the range of how much subsidies the fossil fuel companies get range from $4 billion a year to $24 billion a year. So the most reliable number, to the best of my knowledge, was $14 billion. But I'd take, all incoming facts on that issue. But it is an enormous amount of subsidies for an industry that does not need it at all. They've had subsidies for over 100 years. Subsidies are supposed to be for a young industry to make sure they can get up off their feet. Do we think oil's gotten up off its feet? Has it stabilized yet? And so, and of course, there's just corruption. They're the most profitable companies in the world. They're literally the companies that need subsidies the least on the entire planet, let alone the fact that they're destroying the planet. Even if they didn't have terrible consequences and harm that they were causing, they still wouldn't need the subsidies. It would still be a crime to take our money as taxpayers, to take money that you give in taxes, and to give it to ExxonMobil. But they're not ending those. They're ending it for renewable energies that actually create jobs, save the planet, and actually those are companies that do need it because it is a nascent industry. And the subsidies that they gave earlier led to a lot of those companies stabilizing, getting their feet under them, and now competing with fossil fuel. Yeah. So fossil fuel sends in their lobbyists, using this GM thing probably as an excuse, to go and destroy renewable energy. That is called crony capitalism. Yep. It is the definition of it. It is not the free market. And so understand what Donald Trump is doing. As usual, he's messing around with the free market. If he actually cared about it, and he wanted to be principled, I don't agree with ending the renewable energy subsidies. But at a bare minimum, you all have to agree, even if you're conservative, maybe particularly if you're conservative, that he should have ended all the subsidies, including for oil, gas, and coal, but he didn't.
Yeah. And look, this is, I guess, the 70th story like this that we've done in the past 2 years, where when you put climate deniers and people who despise the environment and love oil and coal, when you put them in office, this is what you get. And so every week or so, every 2 weeks at max, we have a story like this where we are screwed over when it comes to our environment and our climate, that we don't have time to be screwing around. We don't have a bunch of years that we can just afford for them to be driving us off a cliff as fast as they possibly can. But this is what we get. We get this. We get getting rid of Obama-era CAF standards. We get the destruction of the methane regulations, new oil drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, more oil drilling offshore. I mean, I could honestly go on for this entire hour, and we actually did a couple of videos where it was just a listing of the many regulation changes that benefit coal and oil and natural gas and fracking and harm our ability to deal with the threat of climate change. But this is what we get. And there are some other proposals. I'm not going to go through them. It's distressing to see in a 24-hour period we have people who are serious, whether they're activists or politicians, and we saw both in D.C. at Bernie Sanders' climate meeting, who take this threat seriously, who want to institute something like a Green New Deal, who want to deal with climate change while generating millions of jobs and renewed economic activity and all of that. And then to know that best case scenario, we get to wait about 2 years, unless we are, more successful than we could possibly imagine in convincing the Republicans to go over to our side. We still have to wait a couple of years because of this ridiculous, unnecessary, suicidal detour we've taken as a country.
All right, last couple of things. One, it might be a lot of huffing and puffing, as usual with Donald Trump. He cannot by himself do this regulation, according to experts. Now, how many times has he broken the law? So I don't know that he cares about that. But the Democrats are coming to the House, and they will not allow this to go forward.
Because it's a component of the tax law. That is the idea.
That's right.
But we'll see.
By the way, we say the Democrats will not allow this, but they are Democrats.
Yeah, I find it to be unlikely. I find it more likely that he would just do an executive order and say, "I don't care what you say, I'm going to do it."
Yeah, and I don't care what the law is,
Yeah.
etc. And which he's done on many occasions. But now I'm going to give him a tiny bit of ironic credit. The idea that corporations are people and patriotic, and we should just beseech them, is preposterous. I've said it thousands of times. So here, Trump is not beseeching them. He's trying to punish them. Now, you can't punish one particular company. You can't single it out, and they realize that. And Larry Kudlow, his chief economic advisor, seems frustrated by that piece of, law again. So you can't do that. But he is trying to put consequences on companies for, cutting back on jobs and leaving the country. Okay, but can you please do it in a smart way and a non-corrupt way? Right? So there's 1,000 different ways that you could have gone after GM and other companies that are doing this. But why did you choose to just kill the renewable energy part and target their electric vehicles in specific? It seems like, no, that's the corruption part. The oil companies asked you to do that, and then you use the GM closing down their plants as an excuse to do the bidding of the people who gave you campaign donations.
Yeah.
So it's like a kernel of like, hey, if you're going to be a tough guy, I'm actually going to back you up on that. I know not a lot of other progressives believe in that kind of stuff, but I do. I'd push them around. That'll be fun. Can you imagine from a progressive perspective? That would be amazing, right? But at the end of the day, Donald Trump always comes to the same conclusions: incompetence and corruption.
Yeah.
And he did it again.
Yeah, and you also have to bear in mind that we might not have had some of this closing down of these plants if he hadn't put in the tariffs that have cost them something like $1 billion on steel and aluminum, and supported a tax bill that incentivized corporations sending jobs overseas. So if you're going to do both of those things and then act, shocked and chagrined when some of these plants close down, that's a little bit disingenuous.
Totally agreed. John Idarolo is correct. tyt.com/John. Ooh, look at that.
It's going to break fast.
A rare magnanimous act by me to join up. Okay. You might just catch me. Doubt it.
I doubt it too.
Anyway, all right, guys. Apparently, we have to take a break. When we come back, Donald Trump makes up a whole nother thing, but this one has a really important twist because today the market crashed a little bit because of it. And I think the epiphany that the market had is really, really important. So let's talk about that when we come back.
I'm here today to announce a program known as DACA is being rescinded.
We don't run our own country. We've lost our democracy, and all we have left is rage.
Where are the Democrats? I would be on every cable news channel screaming and yelling and talking about what the Republicans are doing right now.
How do you expect us to get excited to show up to the polls for these loser Democrats? How come we have nothing but cowards? We'll never fight. Primaries are everything.
Building a great wall on the southern border.
You have politicians who fearmonger about disenfranchised groups.
The first attack came through the visa lottery.
Now they're against legal immigrants.
Ending chain migration.
They don't want people from those countries coming here. They're f***ing racist. This guy's an absolute monumental disgrace to all of us as Americans.
I ordered to launch precision strikes on targets.
That is what I was warning about for literally years on this program. This is what they promised they would. If they got into power, and what do you know, they did it.
I've now shown dozens of videos on the Young Turks of cops handcuffing people who are bleeding to death. His life means nothing. We have been trained to be cowards, so we're going to handcuff that guy bleeding to death.
What does this law mean? These are all just basic BS coverings.
To every politician who is taking donations from the NRA, shame on you.
They said that this was a possible, but now we're beginning to move that boulder, and at the end we'll get our democracy back. Primary the living hell out of these Democrats, and let's take over the party. That's a ghost ship. Let's board it, let's take it.
Watching all of this very carefully. Simon Wiesenthal.
Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal.
Simon Wiesenthal, leading Nazi hunter in Vienna. Worldwide as the conscience of the Holocaust.
Criminel de guerre de la successful Nazi hunter.
He is a self-appointed instrument of world justice.
But he refuses to let his former tormentors live in peace.
Your organization had tracked down some 1,100. Yes. No. Do you think it's still really worthwhile pursuing? These men who must by now be fairly old.
Any lasting good is going to come out of tracking down these people relentlessly.
To people who say, Mr. Wiesenthal, it is time to forget. Stop hunting these former Nazis. Stop torturing yourself and the world and forget.
Enough already. Enough time has gone by. Enough heartache has gone by. There must be a statute of limitations on this. Sure. No. You must understand, my office is the last office in the world. Because this is the last office, you cannot close the office. cannot stop.
Aaron, which one do you like better? What is this? Or what is this? Go.
My name is Alexandra Jablonski, but I go by Alex. I don't know why I just said Alexandra. I got stuck with one of the hosts. I shouldn't say stuck. I work for one of the hosts for The Breakdown, which is Hassan Hiker. And I also
One.
Listen.
One.
It is very important that you respond to one of the following options. Press 1 if you can confirm your appointment.
One.
Press 2 if you would like to replay this message. Hello, this is Easter Seals Diagnostic and Treatment Center calling to remind Jonathan that you have an appointment on Thursday, December 6th.
Yeah.
Scheduled for 11:30 a.m.
Yeah.
with Deputy Mind over first. LCSW.
work on Me Show a lot of the time as well. My favorite thing about TYT, I would definitely say the family unit aspect. I mean, I genuinely really like working here. Can I curse at all? No. Oh, okay.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Normally we go to members' comments first, but I'm going to go to Twitter first in this case. Eclectic Miscellaneous says, kudos to Cenk. On the correction about Pathos, everyone gets something wrong sometimes, and it's great that you guys let off with it instead of burying it somewhere like they do in the newspaper and online articles. That's another reason I trust TYT. Thank you, brother. We appreciate it.
And importantly, I don't think that it would have necessarily changed much. Any of your analysis.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to correct it.
Yes.
But it didn't change what you thought about the fundamental story.
Right, and that's why we're going to keep that video up, and we're going to put the correction in the description box. And guys, if you ever want to get more details, look at the description box. That's where a lot of the links are, okay? And Imaria writes in, if Cenk goes vegan, I'll up my subscription to an activist level. And I'll use his name on the campaign. Yeah. All right,
and
I hear you.
Really important to note, climate change, industrial agriculture.
Okay, in fact,
things that we have have to start talking about.
In fact, we are going to talk about it on Rebel headquarters, and Mark Thompson is not part of the host thing. But you know who else? There is one other vegan in the staff that is actually part of the host competition for. Signing up more members.
Marijuana. You turned your back on that iguana. It'll take a bite out of you.
No, I believe it is actually vegan.
Oh, maybe.
So, tyt.com/marijuana. Good luck spelling it. Okay, but a lot of you have because he's like in 6th place or something.
That's amazing.
Okay, so Mermaidum writes in along the lines that you were talking about, John, and from the member section this time. So put pressure on them to stop subsidies to animal agriculture via the Farm Bill. Dairy and meat production are not profitable, and we bail them out every year. The whole industry is a huge contributor to climate change, and making people pay the real price would change habits and put a huge dent in our impact on climate change. Well, that's a terrific point.
It's a big portion.
So I am an omnivore, so I would want wind up paying more. Well, that's called sad day for me. And if I don't like it, I could stop eating meat and drinking milk. Okay.
Well, interestingly, on this, to some extent, that sort of subsidy system is kind of already in there. Apparently, on average, vegetarians spend about $750 less on food each year, and long term, in terms of medical bills, they probably save quite a bit of money there as well.
The vegans are carrying us.
They're doing pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, the vegetarians are carrying the rest of us. Anyway, so, and by the way, the hilarious thing is I actually believe in the free market, but we don't have the free market. It's so corrupted by all the money in politics. And so I actually think that, hence, it's a long way of agreeing with the commenter that, yeah, of course we should pay the real price of milk and eggs and steak. It's preposterous to subsidize them. Why are you guys subsidizing my fat ass? That makes no sense at all. Right? So those are the choices I'm making. Anyway.
Well, technically, chicken is a newer industry than oil, so we do have to keep subsidizing that.
I'm pretty sure the chicken industry is pretty ancient.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyway, I just need you guys to panic about one. Last thing, which is Shop TYT. This is the last day that you can guarantee delivery by December 25th. So go to shoptyt.com to get that delivery.
Nice.
And so go for it. Make sure that you get your shopping in now. Of course, membership you can get anytime. It'll be delivered within 1 second. But if you're buying an actual item, go to shoptyt.com. Great shirts and sweaters, including ones. With my face on it. So enjoy that. All right, what's next, John?
Yes. And also, it was launched while you were gone. If people participate in the Amplify program and give at least 3 memberships, $150 level, the T-shirt that they ended up choosing is an amazing design.
Oh, I don't even know which one they chose.
Oh, and it's just available if you do Amplify. How good is that?
Oh, I love that. That was my favorite. That's awesome. You guys are terrific.
And it looks good in black and white.
It does.
It's so good.
It does. I'm super looking forward to one of those. Okay.
Yeah. Well, then you're going to have to do the Amplify program.
Isn't it? Okay. Then we'll have to see how that works out. All right. Excellent. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for designing it, too. And Jen, let's get the name of the person who designed that one. I want to give that person credit, too. All right. What's next, John?
Trade time. Trump ended his time at the G20 summit by announcing what appeared to be an absolutely massive concession by China on their trade with the United States. He tweeted, China has agreed to reduce and remove tariffs on cars coming into China from the U.S. Currently, the tariff is 40%. So they're going to reduce and remove the tariffs. I would argue that those are mutually exclusive. Like, you're either reducing them or you're removing them, and it seems pretty significant, which it is. But look, it's obviously one of those. I mean, he just met with the leadership of China. He must know what he's talking about. It started to seem a little bit dicey later on that same day. Yahoo reported, it's unclear whether China would reduce its car tariffs immediately or as a result of a broader deal. In a briefing in Beijing a few hours after the tweet, China's foreign ministry spokesman declined to comment on any car tariff changes. So they were being very close-lipped about it in comparison to Donald Trump, who instantly posted on Twitter and Snapchat and Insta about it. But he also gave more information since then about the future of trade between the U.S. and China, saying, on seeing whether or not a real deal with China is actually possible, if it is, we will get it done. China is supposed to start buying agricultural product and more immediately. President Xi and I want this deal to happen, and it probably will. But if not, remember, I am a tariff man. When people or countries come in to raid the great nation of our, or great wealth of our nation, I want them to pay for the privilege of doing so. It will always be the best way to max out our economic power. We are right now taking in billions in tariffs. Make America rich again, and he just didn't have enough room for the exclamation point. So yes, if they're gonna, he's a tariff man, capitalized, just like Scott Free was yesterday. This is an amazing guy. So look, big progress apparently with China.
Yeah.
We've been worried worried about that trade war. It's serious, hurting a number of our different industries. It partially might have hurt GM, caused some of those factory closures.
First of all, I do want to give him credit for citing the great song by Elton John, Tariff Man. Okay, so he loves nicknames. I thought you couldn't get any goofier than George W. Bush on nicknames. He named things, folks, such names as Tall Guy. I'm not kidding. Okay, Budget Man.
That sounds like a Bush one.
Okay, and no, yeah, Stretch was one of his favorites. If you weren't Tall Guy, you were Stretch.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more clever, I guess.
And of course, my favorite, he gave the nickname Pootie Poot to Vladimir Putin. It's unbelievable.
Cute, I guess. I don't know.
How do you give him a cutie name? Anyway, why don't you just call him Cutie Patootie?
No.
Okay, even Trump didn't do that.
Yes.
But Trump has found a way to out-dumb George W. Bush. And he's like, okay, so he called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man. I get it. Calling yourself Tariff Man, like, that's worse than when Costanza tried to name himself T-Bone.
Oh, poor T-Bone. I think he ended on Coco, actually. Yeah, you can't do that. And there is a problem with Tariff Man, as someone pointed out on Twitter. The kryptonite to Tariff Man is market forces, and which he doesn't seem to understand. And he also doesn't understand a fundamental thing that we have been talking about literally since the debates, when he started talking about these tariffs. If he puts up tariffs against their goods, it's not China that pays us that money. We pay that money. Mm-hmm. We pay higher prices for those goods. Now, yes, long term, you could say it's trying to change the calculus, and maybe that'll cause them to lower the tariffs on the other side, blah, blah. Blah. But in the short term, Tariff Man is robbing you for all the steel and aluminum and all of that, the products that are made from these raw materials, the soybeans, everything.
Tariff Man also took a lot of your jobs away, because since the companies are paying higher tariffs, they decided, I don't want to produce it here anymore. I'm going to go to other countries where I don't have to pay those tariffs.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason GM left, and the 15,000 jobs went along with it. So Tariff Man's a bit of an anti-hero. He's I guess he's a villain, right? Because he takes away your jobs, charges you more, screws up the economy, which leads me to explaining what actually is going on. John's kidding around about how he solved it and stuff, right? So on Monday, he's basically puts out the congratulatory tweet. We're done with this, and I've got, and China is going to roll back the tariffs, and the market goes up. It was like, yes, finally, oh, thank God, right? And because the companies are thinking, okay, then I don't have to pay as much of a tariff, I'm going to make more money, and I'm going to sell more products because they're not going to be as expensive. It's a double win, right? So for the companies. And so then today, they went and asked the Chinese, and the Chinese were like, not so much, right? And they're like, what? But he said it in a tweet. We're like, and then I could just see, like both the guys, the reporters, and the guys in the market going, oh, what have we done? It was a Trump tweet. Why did we listen to it? And then CNBC calls JP Morgan, and JP Morgan's like, no, none of this is true, okay?
You want some of them JP Morgan quotes? So JP Morgan is telling investors that Trump's declaration this week that China will immediately drop all tariffs on American cars has no basis in reality.
I mean, let's just pause there. No basis in reality. JP Morgan is not a bunch of good guys. They're a bunch of greedy bankers, right? And they were like looking forward to the tariffs being lifted, and everything was going to be great. And then they're like, no basis in reality.
Yeah, no, that needs to stick. It needs to be Trump 2020. No basis in reality.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what they told the investors. They sent a note saying that investors should have valid reason for caution when it comes to investing on the hopes that Trump is on the verge of a major breakthrough with China. They said it doesn't seem like anything was actually agreed to at the dinner, and the White House officials are contorting themselves into pretzels to reconcile Trump's tweets, which seem, if not completely fabricated, then grossly exaggerated with reality.
So CNBC broke this story. I'm not a huge fan of their anchors. They tend to be very right-wing. But they give credit where credit is due. And so I went to see NBC this morning to check it out. And it felt like the whole website was like, it was before the markets opened. And it felt like a huge, whoa, okay, here comes the crash, ... And so we did have a crash today. It's not, I don't want to mislead you, it's not like a recession style crash, not a 2008 crash, but all the gains from yesterday gone and then some. So we got hit pretty hard, over 500 points. So, but I think the most interesting part and relevant part here is not that Trump lied in tweet. He does that almost on a daily basis. That he made up policy of both the United States and China. He does that on a daily basis. And it's not that the markets dipped. They've continued to dip for quite some time now, and Trump's getting frustrated by it. He can't figure out why. Note to tariff man, look in the mirror. Okay, that's why. Anyway, but the most relevant part of this entire story the markets are no joke. They got to get it right. There's lots of money on the line. And today was basically the markets realizing in mass, oh no, this guy doesn't tell the truth. What were we thinking? And they did. They largely had not realized what a gigantic liar Donald Trump is. So for the markets, again, in mass, to really go, don't, right? Why did we ever believe him? And so I'm not saying that the crash was like a macro look at Donald Trump, and now that we realize he's been lying all along, we're going to downgrade everything. No, but it was in specific to this. Yeah. And of course, there's other market forces as well. But it seemed pretty clear that it went up yesterday because of the tariff comments, and went down even more so today because they realized that none of it was true. But I think that it could have, going forward, long-term consequences as the markets finally wake up to who Donald Trump is. That's a deeply unstable, unreliable leader, which is not good for the markets.
Agreed. Do you want to take the second break, or do you want to move on to the next story?
You know what? Let's take a quick break. The Epstein story is gigantic. JR, at least in my experience, I'm sure he's not the first one to recognize it ever in history, but about a decade ago, pointed out in the middle of his story, hey, Cenk, did you realize that all that the Republicans do is projection? That whatever they accuse liberals of, they themselves do, right? And my God, that has been the best observation in TYT history. And so the Epstein case is a story of essentially Pizzagate, child pedophilia involving the elite, except it's real. It's not out of a pizza parlor, it's out of a mansion, and a yacht, and a jet, literally, and it involves people like Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz. Now, whether they all did it is a different question, okay? But it's a real question, and we're going to tell you what happened today, but there's a doozy of a twist in the original non-prosecution agreement. I mean, it's potentially world-changing. When I saw it in the Miami Herald, I was like, what? Why in the world did they put that in? Man, that's the thing that can unravel everything. So, how's that for a tease? But we will deliver on all of it when we return.
Fargo account. I just divested funds from Wells Fargo. I definitely urge you to do the same. Please come divest. Water is life.
Show that's blowing the doors off everybody. Young Turks is the largest online news network, not a big deal. We're going to rock the boat. We're going to be counter-establishment. We're going to tell people the truth to the best of our abilities. We're so sick of this corruption. We're not the robot. On TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. Fourth day on Occupy Wall Street. Last night we launched Wolfpack. It's us pushing our ideas out there, trying to help the country in every way that we can, trying to make this place just a little bit better. Reporting from the Hillary Bernie debate. I gotta be up. You know what we do? We cover it for real. For us, this system isn't working. Free and fair elections. And when he told the cops that day, when they came to drag her away, and he said, if you're gonna chain her, you're gonna chain me. If you're gonna arrest her, you're gonna arrest me.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello.
My name is Aaron Wysocki, and I'm the Director of Content Distribution for the Young Turks. So that means I deliver our product to market. We write all the titles and the descriptions and the tags for all the different platforms we're on. My team does. Not just me. I started interning 10 years ago, I became a part-timer 9 years ago, and I became a full-timer 8 years ago.
How do you feel as a star of Explain Facebook video?
That's a lot of what I do for TYT, so it's pretty accurate. I would much rather be a behind-the-scenes guy that explains things to help Jen get his message out, so... I like him. The Vine reference makes me cringe a little bit, because nobody... remembers Vine.
Do you have a message for members or something to tell to the members?
I mean, beyond thank you. Thank you for supporting the Young Turks. You're more important than ever. Keep sending your feedback, because people definitely look at them and look at them even if they don't get a chance. To respond right away. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, please. What I see in the future for TYT, more of 2016. I think we're providing a voice that almost nobody in the media ecosystem is providing. So I think we're going to continue to be the digital campfire for that particular side of the political spectrum.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful, arguably one of the top Democrats in the House. But there's someone finally challenging him. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The election is today. If she wins, David beats Goliath.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
You made that happen. You're David. You just beat Goliath tonight. is a warm-up act. Wait till you get a load of 2020. All right, back on the Young Turks. Guys, like I told you, the one of the founders of Just Democrats, and and their current leadership is going to be here for Rebel headquarters after the Young Turks. Make sure you're watching that on tyt.com/live, and then, or you just get our app, tyt.com/app, and then afterwards, for the members only, they will be telling the story of how they found Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the first place. It's an amazing story that I think you guys will love. That's tyt.com/join to become a member and to get that story in the post game. And on Rebel headquarters, they'll be talking about their new plans as well. Oh, I was just going to tell you guys, it's actually a great time to join up, because you can get a week free as a trial period right now at tyt.com/holiday. tyt.com/holiday. Okay, John. Let's do the Epstein story.
Okay, let's. Jeffrey Epstein once again avoided a full public accounting of the many charges of sexual assault that he has faced over the years. We're going to run you through this. It's a complex story involving a lot of different elements, very dark as well. So first, an overview. Jeffrey Epstein could have gone to prison for life. He was accused of sexually abusing dozens of underage girls at his Palm Beach mansion between 2001 and 2006. But as Julie K. Brown reports at the Miami Herald, he ultimately got just 13 months in a county jail, sort of, thanks to a deal signed by Alexander Acosta, then the U.S. Attorney for Miami, and now President Trump's Secretary of Labor. Flash forward to today, he has reached a settlement, actually, in a lawsuit in which some of his accusers were expected to testify, avoiding yet again the prospect of facing the women in court. So what they would have said, we don't know because of that settlement early today. Now, overall, he has said that any encounters he had with his accusers were consensual, and that he believed that they were 18 at the time. You can believe that if you would like. Let's talk back to go back to the original time that he spent in. How we got to that point rather than some more drastic sentencing. When authorities began investigating Epstein way back, he assembled a team of private investigators to dig up dirt on the girls who accused him and the police and prosecutors working the case. Then he and his team of powerful lawyers, including notably Alan Dershowitz and Ken Starr, were able convince prosecutors to go easy on him despite disturbing allegations by a growing number of women and girls. When word finally reached Palm Beach police of Epstein's criminal behavior, Acosta bent over backwards at the request, then the insistence of Epstein's high-powered lawyers to ensure that the millionaire received minimal jail time and even less publicity. Worse, Acosta appears to have violated federal law by keeping the deal a secret. Epstein's young victims were never notified of the agreement, therefore they never had a chance to challenge it in front of a judge. So we don't know what effect that would have had if the judge had access to all of the information of all of the people involved in these acts. But they did not get that. Now, give you a little bit more details of what he is alleged to have done. He is accused of assembling a large cult-like network of underage girls with the help of women who were, quote, recruiters, to coerce into performing sex acts at his pink mansion in Palm Beach. One of the victims said he was insatiable. It was always get me more girls, get me more girls. He made the girls massage him, watch him masturbate, and allow him to penetrate them. Many of the girls, poor or from troubled homes, were lured to the mansion by money. He would pay them about $200. And that same reporter for the Miami Herald apparently identified at least 80 women, possibly more, who say that they were molested or otherwise sexually abused. By Epstein. Now, there are some complicating factors I know, Cenk, that you're interested in. And in particular, but pretty dark case, and to go to jail, a county jail, for such a short period of time, very noteworthy.
So let's break this down into a couple of different categories. First is the travesty of justice that happened to Epstein, in that how little justice was served to him. Okay, and then we'll get to Alex Acosta, the current labor secretary. Then we'll get to the high-powered figures like Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and Alan Dershowitz, who were friends with Epstein. So on Epstein, the guy gets 18 months. The FBI had started a probe, as John just told you. There were allegations of over 80 women. They had already identified 36. So 36 women they already knew. And I say women, but actually a lot of them were girls as young as 14. And they could have gotten them life in prison. Magically goes away for 18 months, but the part that
13 months actually.
Yeah, no, he serves 13 months. Yeah. The sentence is 18 months. He serves 13 months, but did he really serve the 13 months? They let him out during the day. To work, and sometimes he would come back to jail at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
That's not prison. It's just not.
Can I build on that just briefly? So he was let out. This is 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. Basically, prison's like your apartment, you just don't spend much time there. And specifically in Palm Beach, their sheriff's department, it prohibits work release for sex offenders. So he never should have been eligible for it to begin with.
No, it's just an unbelievable injustice. And he trafficked these girls throughout the country, in New Mexico, according to the charges, in Florida, in New York, and perhaps internationally. You know what Alex Acosta's job is now? So he's the labor secretary, but you might not know what that entails. The labor secretary is in charge of stopping sex trafficking. So the guy who allowed the sex trafficking of Epstein is now in charge of preventing sex trafficking. Yeah. So they dropped all the federal charges and refused to look into it. For the plea agreement of a so-called 18-month sentence that was 13 months, that was actually nothing. It was a hotel room that he went back to in Palm Beach. Okay?
A private wing.
A private wing? What is he? Pablo Escobar? And in a sense, he is.
Yep.
He's America's version of it. And so the corruption is despicable here. He had sex with underage girls and trafficked them to his powerful friends. So these insane Republicans with their crazy theories about Pizzagates, etc. And it turns out the pedophilia is right under their nose. It's done by Epstein and his powerful friends. not Hillary Clinton. It's not people in the basement, although it does potentially affect Bill Clinton. We'll get to that in a second. But who covered it up? The government covered it up under Bush, and now Acosta is rewarded by Trump and made the labor secretary. Okay, and what he did was flat out illegal. I don't mean Epstein, that's obvious. I mean Acosta. The federal law that he broke is the Crime Victims' Rights Act. You must, as a matter of law, tell the victims if you're going to do a plea. Deal. He didn't. Not only did he not tell the 36 victims that at least that they already knew about, the FBI knew about. Remember, he's a U.S. attorney down in Miami, so he's at the federal level. But he stopped the FBI from any further investigation to find any more victims or any more perpetrators. A cop. Acosta should be arrested. I'm not kidding at all. I mean, the guys.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. don't, right? But he was born, you know.
Born a Jew. That's right. Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
Who would you say is the next best known?
I would say Dave. Kohler is probably Dave's third, yeah.
Right.
And then literally anyone else.
Right.
And then someone after that.
And then Rick.
Yeah,
right.
That's
So,
right.
so
Yeah.
it works out. Also, you can go to Shop TYT because there are all sorts of tchotchkes, schmatas. But you should buy whatever you want and join and put /Ben there because then he gets nothing too.
That's right. So next year in Jerusalem.
An 81-year-old woman has been awarded $2.9 million after she sued McDonald's.
The McDonald's employee took the coffee, threw it on her.
Who brings these frivolous lawsuits?
People that are jackpot justice oriented.
The media
in corporate America did a masterful job. Mrs. Liebeck became a joke.
Businesses use a number of devices to keep the public out of the courts.
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
I was burned so severely that they didn't think I would live.
Are you gonna show me the burns?
What?
Yes, if I saw injuries like that, I would. Definitely take a different view of it.
She was drugged, raped, gang raped. She had to have reconstructive surgery, sir.
Miss Jones has had her day in court.
4 years to fight to get in court is not a day in court.
The Appeal was a book I published. It's completely fiction, and it's completely true. It's a story of the purchasing of a Supreme Court seat in Mississippi.
It's a good payoff. You put money in a judicial race, it can have literally $1 million impact on your company.
The U.S. Chamber mounted a very, very large and expensive campaign against me.
When you're pregnant with twins, it's really important to determine how many placentas. When I went in, it should have been immediately followed up with an ultrasound.
You just want to change what happened, knowing that it was preventable.
You have to go through a lot of trouble to do it. It affects your life. You're going to be attacked in all kinds of ways. Going to court to gain justice is heroic.
Young Turks. Meg Hopley was the person who the meet the press package on tyrt.com/amplify. Thank you, Meg. I'm told that I should check the
thermometer to see where we're at on membership signups. Ooh, past 30, and God bless, 38,008. Okay, tyrt.com. All right, like I said, right after the show. Rebel headquarters has all the Just Democrat leaders, and in the post-game we will tell you the story of how they found Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and got her to tyt.com/join to hear that post-game. This Rebel headquarters is free for everybody. Next, though. Brett, what's the last story we have?
Speaking of thermometers in the 30s, here's a snowball story. So, you're never too young to make a difference. Dane Best is a 9-year-old who lives in a town called Severance, Colorado, and he changed a law. Which law? The law against snowball fights. He went before the board and said, the children of Severance want the opportunity to have a snowball fight like the rest of the world. I think it's an outdated law, he told the AP. I want to be able to throw a snowball without getting in trouble. Apparently they classified snowballs as missiles. And guess what? They voted unanimously. The town ordinance had been making them illegal to throw any spherical object. Those are the facts of the case. But they overturned it, and now he can throw snowballs, and the mayor let him and his brother throw the first ones. Congrats, buddy.
That's super cute. It gets cuter when they ask them who you throw a snowball at. He pointed at his 4-year-old brother and said, him.
Hilarious.
He deserves it. It was all a two-heckle.
Well, I like the original law's intent. It was illegal to throw or shoot stones or missiles
at people, animals, buildings, and even trees, as well as private property and vehicles. They just shouldn't have called the snowball a missile, and then we would have been okay. The other missiles we do have issues with. But kids love snowball fights. I mean, you know, when you were a kid, I got an 8-year-old and a 6 year-old now. Their favorite thing in the world was last spring break when we went to Canada. They knocked me down with a snowball. Joy, at the time, 5-year-old hit me first, and then the 7-year-old hit me afterwards, and I stumbled backward and fell down, and it was the greatest moment of their lives.
I love that. I miss out on that, like, part of childhood. I don't like the elements. I like climate control, heat in the wintertime. I don't like dirt and air and grass and snow outside. I have no desire, but more power to you.
Yeah.
It's a terrible, boring. Kid.
1-year-old Anna Kasparian today is Brooke Thomas.
Yeah. Does she not like
hates the snow.
I hate it.
She wishes against the snow, which is really un-American. So, let him snow! Let him snow!
I barely air. I don't know.
So, Dane Best, you're a true American hero. We appreciate it. All right, Rebel Headquarters is next. Bye-bye.
I miss it.
entrepreneurs got a great show for you guys today. Our second set of guests is going to be the leader of the Just Democrats. They're going to tell us about what wonderful plans they've got coming up in the next couple of years. I want to see that live and for you guys. All right, now a great first guest as well.
J.C. Reese is joining me. He's the author of The End of Animal Farming, How Scientists, Entrepreneurs, and activists are building on an animal-free food system. JC, welcome to the program. Okay, have you here. Let me ask you a question. I claim that within 100 years we might be animal-free. What do you, fascinating? And that, by the way, that later we will be judged for our actions today, but that's also fascinating. So what do you base both of those things on?
Yeah, there are two big factors. So the first one is something called the expanding moral circle. You know, as someone interested a variety of human and animal rights issues, it seems that over the centuries we're coming to care about not just more and more humans, but also more and more non-human animals. So we're caring about animals used in circuses, dogs and cats in our homes. You know, if you go back a century ago, people didn't have pets like they do now. Things like cat burning, so a public spectacle where cats were actually, set in a net above a fire in public was popular. In France. This is just kind of absurd to think about today, and it seems like farmed animals are the next step in this expanding circle. Second is more of a self-interest concern. So animal agriculture is extremely inefficient. So if you're using animals for food, you put in around 10 calories for every 1 calorie you get out, or around 10 grams of protein. For every 2 grams of protein you get out as meat, dairy, or eggs. And that's just something that humans have an interest in not doing, just for profits, just for getting more output for fewer inputs, or for environmental concerns. You know, if we want to feed the world sustainably by 2050, we need to move on from animals used for food.
So, I want to break down that argument a little bit more. First of all, I did not know about what those, the bastards of France used to do. They're obviously terrible people. Now I get the context of time. And obviously some people still eat dogs. Although you're certainly right.
In any economic system, you're going to get
right about the expanding circle of morality, because
while you're using them, while you're exploiting them in that way. And I think even if you just care about animal cruelty, there's still a very strong case for caring about animal
rights and for supporting even personhood for animals. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the technology coming on board. So I think that's the second thing we can all get on board with, which is as people are developing plant-based meat, dairy, and eggs. So like these new bleeding veggie burgers that are out, like the Beyond Burger and the Impossible Burger. To many people, they're indistinguishable from beef, and certainly they look similarly. And it's really exciting to be able to bridge the gap between people's values and their behavior. Because for decades, vegans and animal rights activists have been screaming from the rooftops or yelling with bullhorns, think of PETA or something. And that's just, most people have struggled to change with their own diets. But once we get this technology with the activism, with the ethics, I think that's the reason we're going to see such rapid change over the coming years.
All right, J. Series, the book is The End of Animal Farming. Thank you for joining us and enlightening us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. When we return, Justice Democrats are in the House. Justice, when we come back.
The United States economy has never been better. Monetary policy is spectacular. Everybody thought Jamie Dimon was the king of Wall Street last week. Oh, it might be Ken Lewis now. He takes the crowd. The best salesperson out there is Merrill Lynch, and now it goes to Bill Gates. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Buying opportunity. I do think this is a buying opportunity. We're going to see a stabilization and just a tremendous snapback. The rally will be philanthropic.
The Occupy Wall Street movement is not a spontaneous protest against economic inequality. This is what we mean by the establishment press. It is a well thought out campaign to bring down the infrastructure of this country. The embarrassment is that I'm given credibility in this world, just disappointment that the public has in what the news media does.
I'm the former chairman of the Veterans Committee, and I've learned a little bit about the cost of war. What the president is trying to do, and I agree with him, is to do everything that we can without going to war. So as you say to your critics, I'm talking about Democratic critics, who say, you know what, he's really just a socialist pacifist.
I very rarely read in any coverage of Bernie that he's a socialist.
Bernie Sanders is a socialist, for God's sake.
Most analysts are saying that Hillary Clinton's going to win in a landslide.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president. I got Trump at 279, 259. We're not going to be polite anymore. You know what we're going to do? We're going to fight back. Fight for a free and independent media. We're done with politeness. Fight back. We are going to put together the best investigative reporting team in the country. TYT will give you the full force, and we will let them gallop. Help unleash real journalism in the country. We don't need anybody else anymore but you guys. TYTnetwork.com/go. This is going to be amazing.
What are you doing?
and I'm not sure, I don't think it's hatred, but certainly disdain for progressives. And they treat them way harsher. My God, Ocasio-Cortez has been attacked endlessly. Washington Post did it again today. Today, right? So what do you think, since you're the communications area, what do you think is going on with the media and why they tilt the playing field towards the Republicans?
Well, so when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joined our conference call on the internet to do the launch of the Our Time Project, she said this thing where she was like, I don't think anyone who takes money from the pharmaceutical industry should legislate on healthcare, and I don't think anyone who takes money from the fossil fuel industry should legislate on climate change. And that quote blew up on social media, blew up in the press, and was one of her most retweeted things that has ever come out. And it's because the public agrees with her. People in DC, people in the New York press, DC press, they don't really see it, even though it's common sense to the majority of the public that you shouldn't legislate on things where you're taking money from. The other thing is all the things that the press attacks her about around being too poor, not being smart enough and knowing how DC works, the public sees that and they're disgusted by how the press treats her. And I think it's really, it's this populist thing where she's drawing, I'm a working class person, look how they're treating me, imagine what they think about you. I think it's this huge, it's a jiu-jitsu thing, everything they use against her doesn't stick and it just makes them look like assholes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they live in their bubble and actually believe, and I don't think they recognize that they believe this, that they feel like she doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
Right? And where does that come from? It comes from, everyone I know is from a certain class, right? If not, I don't think it's a certain race, because there's a lot of minorities that are in the Democratic Party, but they are in a certain class, right? And some of them are good guys, and some of them not so much. Some of them are conservative Democrats, etc. And they have this instinctual sense with Alexandria that she doesn't belong here. And that disdain comes through in almost all the media in how the rest of the Democrats treat them too. So, Alex, just Democrats arguably got famous by primarying other Democrats, including Joe Crowley, of course, right? So, but now you've got 7 incumbents. So, I think the expectation was, well, okay, we're going to end that primarying nonsense, right? Now that you've got incumbents. So, what are we doing in the next 2 years?
I think we're doubling down on primaries. I think that what we've seen, and one of the biggest things that we've personally learned, is that one big race can change everything, right? And so we endorsed in 2018, over 60 candidates, and we were proud to do that. But we made an intentional decision sort of towards the end of Ocasio's campaign to go all in. And we saw the amount of resources, the amount of that takes, and now teaming up with Sunrise Movement and the Ocasio-Cortez office, what it means to have Justice Democrats leadership in the House. And that we believe now, in assessing and doing analysis of all the places that we personally did really well, there's a lot of groups working on the red to blue, and we did as well. We aren't necessarily ruling that out. But it's super clear that where we performed well was in blue districts, and we believe that progressives, especially diverse, working class, female leadership, does really well, and that every district in America blue district in America can be represented by a progressive that actually champions the values of its constituents. And it's clear, at least to our analysis, that there are plenty that are not like that. We talked about some of the press coverage around the New Deal. You had blue dog Democrats like Henry Cuellar out in Texas saying that Democrats aren't allowed to run on, or shouldn't run on 100% renewable energy because of swing voters, right? And those types of Democrats are what is, not allowing our party to actually inspire the nation. And we believe that a Democratic Party can actually inspire the nation. One of the biggest obstacles is corporate money. It's the fossil fuel industry. But it's also our own imagination of what's possible. And we need Democrats that are actually going to think big, to inspire volunteers to do big things, and supporters to actually believe that what they're voting for is making history.
Yeah, so a couple of real quick things off that. Cuellar is a minority, but he's a corporate Democrat, and so he makes preposterous points like swing voters really want to protect the oil industry. Yeah, I see that all the time.
For Republicans. That's what he did during the Democratic primary.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was in Ohio, and I thought Trump was going to win and Hillary was going to lose in 2016 because everyone around was going, God, I love ExxonMobil. Right? That's not why. That's not what affects swing voters. Being an elitist corporate money taker is what actually turns those swing voters away. But as it turned out, we didn't intend this, and there was 60 different candidates, but all 7 Justice Democrats are minorities, and I didn't realize that until now, right? I never thought about it that way. Of course, the 4 new ones are all women of color, and if you include John Paul, who's an incumbent, that's 5 women of color, and so it turns out if you actually do things based on principle and the issues, you wind up having something that's representative of the country, right? Now, it's not like there aren't other white men in Congress. There are, right? So this is, some new folks, new blood coming into Congress. I want to talk about how you guys found Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I want to do that for the members, so we're going to do that on the postgame, tyt.com/join. Actually, a free week trial now. We started tyt.com/holiday, so you can do that and watch it for free, okay, and find that information out. But I want to keep going here, okay? So now, in terms of the primaries, so last time you guys raised money and then you used it to build up the organization and to get these wins. So my guess is you're going to need money again to find a whole new batch of folks, whether it's 60 or more. And so where should people go? How do people participate? Not just money, but also volunteers, etc.
Yeah. So right now, you can go to justicedemocrats.com, and the first thing that's going to pop up is a donation page, because we do need lots of resources to be able to, build an alternative pathway to Congress that actually is for working class people to run and win, like Alexandria. And same place to volunteer. We're currently hosting monthly webinars that sort of tell our story of the situation of what's happening in America, right? And our strategy and our tactics moving forward. And so it's absolutely, to kind of talk about how Alexandria got there, it was because of all of you guys, right? Not only did you support us in funding, but you nominated people from across the country, from every part of our society, our economy, and gave us a list of over 10,000 people that were not only diverse in ethnicity, but were diverse in background and are bringing their lived experiences in Congress. And so Waleed mentioned that we launched our Time campaign alongside Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and we now have proof of concept that we can have people like her in every part of the country. So if you know anyone anywhere in your community that's actually doing the work of, transforming the lives of the people in their community, like Alexandria was, or people that, had moments where they had an opportunity to sell out but didn't, right? And I think Alexandria, choosing to go to work for her family after her dad died, right? Choosing to go to Standing Rock, drop everything that she was doing and go stand with indigenous leaders over there in the Dakotas is so powerful, and we're looking for those types of really diverse working class leaders to join her in Congress, right? She said that she's not necessarily lonely. She's got all the other Justice Democrats alongside her. But the way that we feel moving forward to really build power is going to be able to actually, and strengthen, I think, the Democratic Party to go on the offensive, as I like to say, is by having that healthy part of our democracy be in competitive primaries. And the only way we got Alexandria was from an entire nomination process that we spent a year in the making. So that's what we're doing, and those monthly webinars that we're hosting to kind of explain how we're going to do it is where we want people to get involved. So if you guys want to check it out, it's jdems.us/monthly call, and you can go to justicedemocrats.com to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, I want to talk in the post game about the criteria you guys use to eventually make the selections, right? But I want you guys to understand that now is the time for action for 2020. And we learned a lot of lessons in the last 2 years. But one thing that Just Democrats did great for an infrastructure they already had through brand new Congress, again, we'll talk about that in the post game, is that they got the nominations early, and they made a lot of great decisions early on, including Ocasio-Cortez. And so you got to start nominating now, okay? Because you need a long runway. You need to you need to nominate the candidates. You got to just pick the candidates. Then you got to create a team for them, and then they've got to get going and have all their volunteers in the field. And Alex originally did organized the volunteers for JD. Shortcut did some of the technology behind it, etc. So, and for everyone that participated as a volunteer, donor, or anything else, just Democrats, I challenge you to find one person who wasn't incredibly gratified by the experience. That didn't think, oh my God, it turns out I did make a difference. So if you're out there watching right now, you can make a difference. And so if they thought 7 was a lot last time, wait till they get a load of us in 2020, right? So, Shortcut, back to you though, just to finish this up, and then we'll go to the post game. But so when you still insist on primarying people, okay, what's the pushback you get in Washington? They cannot be happy about that.
The funny thing is, no one has directly talked to me about it. A lot of people have not talked to me, so maybe that's a pushback. People don't like it, and it's sort of funny, right? We're all about democracy, and we're all about having these general elections. But when it comes to democracy within the party, all of a sudden the people in power feel their power threatened, right? The U.S. has a 97% incumbency re-election rate. That's worse than the monarchs were in like the UK, in Old Britain. And so like, this is it's absolutely set up for incumbency protection. Democratic Party focuses on incumbency protection. You do not like democracy at the party level, and they don't, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that would say that primaries did not create a more diverse and a better Democratic Party that's stronger. Like, this freshman class is incredible, right? So why not do more of that, right? Why not try to create a Democratic Party that's actually representative of the people, that's fighting for stuff, that's energetic, that's dynamic, that's doing everything we know we need to do? And the answer is, well, people like to hold on to power and corporate money,
no question. And they've got a lot of excuses for why the incumbency makes sense, but it doesn't. It's anti-democratic. And I want to give a shout out to Ro Khanna, who was so bold coming out and being the first incumbent to join Just Democrats, and he got a ton of heat and pressure for that. And he said, look, I primaried Mike Honda to get my seat. So what, am I going to be a hypocrite and say, no, we should stop primaries and burn the bridge after us? So, for that, I think we all owe him a debt of gratitude. And Washington doesn't care about beseeching. That's not how it works. They care about power. So primaries are an exercise in power. It's way past time that progressives exercise their power in this country. And that's exactly what these guys are doing. So one last thing, Waleed, I want to come back to you because you, in a sense, have to be the busiest man in America, because this constant attack on progressives and Alexandria and Justice Democrats. So I'm curious, when you do pushback, are people responsive? They're like, oh, okay, Just Democrats called, oh, that's an interesting point about Medicare for all, I'm going to write that up. Are they like, no, not interested? I genuinely don't know. What's the reaction you're getting?
Well, I think after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won, a lot of the journalists were kicking themselves for being in Mitt Romney's Utah Senate election and not in Queens for the victory party for Ocasio. And,
well, to be fair, Mitt Romney, it was a nail biter. I mean, what did he win, 97 or 98% of the vote?
So, I think the Overton window is shifting, and people are like, wow, maybe we are out of touch. Like, to be honest, the only people who were covering Ocasio-Cortez's race until about a month or two before was the Young Turks and the Intercept. And now I think they see JD and the Young Turks and the Intercept as places that are on the pulse of where things are in the Democratic Party. But still, I get questions from reporters that don't you think Democrats are going too far to the left with people like AOC? And I was like, well, give me an example. What's too far to the left? And they're like, just too far to the left. Republicans and Trump, they're going too far to the right. I was like, but what's your example? And they're like, forcing evangelicals to make cakes for gay couples. And I'm like, that's your example for going too far to the left? And they don't, when I call it out, they're like, yeah, we do sound kind of crazy. But they're not used to being called out that way. And then to have a politician like Alexandria, and not just her, but Rashida and Ilhan and Ayanna, who are so popular with millennials, with people of color, with the base of the Democratic Party, she's actually exciting people, not just in Queens and in the Bronx, but people in swing states who are like, wow, I'm interested in politics. For the first time, there's someone who's speaking to me, and I live in a red area, or I live in a purple area, and I want someone like Alexandria to run in my district too. So it's overall, I think, a huge boon. for the Democratic Party that people like Alexander who are going to save the party from itself.
Yeah, my sister came over for Thanksgiving the other day. She said, she gives me life. and that's the same thing I hear over and over again. And part of the reason for that is because you guys didn't exist before. And so it was a desert for progressives. We just had no one fighting for us. So I think it just makes a huge, huge difference. Now we can make everyone bake us cakes. All right, the rest of the conversation in the post game, because I think how we pick candidates and how you guys found Ocasio-Cortez, and some folks didn't win. Cory Bush, the one candidate who didn't win, but that didn't make her any less wonderful. And so, and even Randy Bryce gave a great speech at the Sanders Institute about how he lost, but Scott Walker also lost, and a lot of the energy that came out of that movement helped to defeat people like Scott Walker in Wisconsin, and also chase Paul Ryan out of office, etc. So I want to talk all about that as well. tyt.com/join to become a member and hear that. Thank you guys for joining us here, and we'll keep it going. And thank you for all the wonderful work you've done, and let alone the wonderful work you're about to do in the next 2 years. Okay, justicedemocrats.com, everybody, justicedemocrats.com. All right, we'll see you in a minute in post.